All right, hey guys, we just got back from R4. I'm here with Bob Hahn talking about your experience. This was your second trip to Vegas.
Correct.
For R4, and you've got a whole list of notes here from your takeaways. But just give me a little background of, you've been to one. This one was obviously huge, being the 50th anniversary. But what are your big takeaways from it?
Well, there was a lot of things that I learned. There's a lot of just excitement that comes with it as well that helps really move you forward. But some of the big takeaways were, I've got a list here. I'm going to read a couple of them. Jared James is a coach and a trainer. He's excellent. He's worked with RE/MAX for a very long time. And he actually sent us, that went to the R4, sent us a bunch of information, which has been fantastic. But some of the things that he said are visibility trumps ability. And that's so true. Like, if we're not out in front of people, they forget about us. And so many times we have clients that just forget about us because we're not out in front of them. When the market goes crazy, make sure you don't. That one's pretty self-explanatory, but a lot of times we can get worked up over things if we're not careful. And us being the calm one in the room makes all the difference, especially if you're 3 or 4 weeks deep into a listing and they're not getting the results and they're hitting the panic button. Well, we're the ones to be the calm and the reason there. Pros practice so they can't get it wrong. Amateurs practice to get it right.
I like that.
That one is good. That really needs to be our perspective of our business needs to be a step up. We need to be the pro and not the amateur. If you're going on a listing appointment, do you want to be the pro or the amateur? I want to be the pro. I don't, I want to leave the amateurs behind and be the pro. So those things, just little simple phrases, but adopting them and putting them into practice is great.
So one of the things that I always tell agents when they go to a conference like this, it can be certainly overwhelming, especially this year, again, being the 50th anniversary. There was a lot going on.
Oh, yeah.
Between the networking and the parties and the classes, there's a lot. And so I think it can be overwhelming for an agent, especially their first time, because they have a giant list of things that they want to go back and implement. But I try to tell agents, like, hey, if you can go back and just implement 1 or 2 things that are going to complement your business, you're going to be much better off than if you try to implement 50.
Right.
This isn't, you're a RE/MAX agent, so you don't need to necessarily change 50 things in your business. You need to do 2 that are going to enhance what you currently do. I love the pros practice to be pros, or however you said it, and amateurs practice to be adequate. Because I think I did a blog or I did a video recently where I talked about practicing like a pro. Like, a lot of agents want to make professional athlete money. And guess what? Those guys go back and they watch film after every game. They're in the gym every day. They are at practice every day, even in the off season. And so I think it's easy for us as agents or brokers to forget that sometimes, where, hey, we've got to practice too. Some of it will come naturally because we're practicing every time we sell a transaction or a home. But some of it is like, hey, you've got to go and rehearse those scripts, or you've got to work on your marketing so that you can be, what was the Jared James one? You can be apparent, visible. Trump's ability. I think that's huge. We've all had the cousin or the aunt or uncle that sells their home with somebody else because they forgot you were in real estate, or they walk through an open house. And that's one of the most devastating things that can happen as an agent. Right. But it does happen. And so I think if you are constantly visible to them, then you've done what you need to do.
And some of the things I've learned here is it doesn't have to be major changes, but little tweaks in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So a little tweak in a listing appointment, asking a question differently, thinking about things differently, that can really make a huge difference. I know Dave Linger, he said, RE/MAX has had a lot of challenges over the years, and he went through that story, which is much longer than what we want to talk about here, but excellent information.
Sure.
But they have learned to adapt and change and grow. And we need to continue pushing forward with that.
Yeah, if we don't adapt, we're going to die.
Right. We're going to get passed by somebody else.
But I think I've been to every year except for Florida, which was during COVID. I've been to Vegas since 2007. And this was by far the most exciting conference that I've seen, because I think, the launch of KV Core is huge.
Absolutely.
Just seeing that we are making strides in a market that has shifted, where I've seen this before. So I'm not panicked. It's easy to do that. And I think, standing on what we've already accomplished and what we know is going to only increase our ability to move forward. So I'm excited about it. I hate saying I'm excited about a downturn in the market, but I do think it weeds out a lot of agents that don't necessarily need to be in the business. I'm not saying that I want people to lose their jobs or anything like that, but it's very easy. There's a low bar to entry for real estate, and so I think we've got to be cognizant of that, and it does affect our reputation as professionals. The excitement, the camaraderie that's there, the networking. We had talked about an agent that didn't necessarily want to go and hang out with a bunch of other realtors, and it's not like that at all. And I think that's one thing that differentiates RE/MAX too, is we're willing to share.
Right.
You're in an office full of top producers, and what you do is completely different than what the agent down the hallway does, but you might pick up one tip from them that they implement or that you implement, and vice versa.
Right. And talking about building teams and different structures, talking about pitfalls of what to look out for with that. Even, I'm just by myself, but I have one admin, talking to other people about, should I add an additional admin? Should I add a buyer's agent? Just having people that I can use as a sounding board that have been, through that, and they're a little bit ahead of where I am in their business. It was fantastic to be able to, learn from other people.
Absolutely. If you're talking to a new agent or an agent that's never been, what are your recommendations for them?
Book the trip. Book it early.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very much worth going. I mean, this one was obviously a lot of hype just because it was the 50th anniversary, but next year is going to be a big celebration too. It's worth going because there's great training. You always pick up tips, but when we're back here and we're in the grind, we're in the everyday groove that we go through, oftentimes it's hard to implement things.
Sure.
When we go away, we get with other people, we get excited, we come back with a list of, I need to do that, I learned this, I learned that, I need to implement this, or I need to automate this to make things easier. To me, that's where the real value is learning those things and coming back with the excitement that, okay, all right, I'm ready to take the hill now.
Absolutely. So what are you doing to implement some of these things that you've learned?
Well, KV Core is huge. So I'm leaning in heavy on KV Core, and I started to lean in on Booj, but then I pulled back. But KV Core, I'm leaning heavy in, and I'm hoping I don't fall over with that, but I'm leaning heavy in. So I'm working on my Sphere there, getting all of that set up. I've been using the First app and contacting my clients, but I'm really excited about the KV Core stuff. But I'm also excited about implementing just a lot of little tweaks to things. I mean, one of the things that we talked about, or that was talked about at the at R4, was learn who the alpha is on your listing appointment. If you've got a husband and wife,
who's the decision maker?
Who's the decision maker there? Figure that out early, and there's some ways they talked about to figure that out. The easiest one is ask who wants to give me a tour, and then whoever speaks up or commands the other one to do it, you kind of figure that out pretty easy. But there's a number of things like that. Jordan Cohen is the #1 individual RE/MAX agent. He's out in California. He had some really good tips on listing presentations, and he said we're kind of like a professional athlete's
Their agent?
Professional athlete's agent, and we are promoting them. We're promoting their listing, And
Jerry Maguire.
yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, that's the way we roll on some of those listings. But he was also talking about use Quillbot to write your listing descriptions. Certainly there's other AI.
ChatGPT and Jarvis and
Right. But just talking to other agents that have done that, I mean,
oh, it saves so much time.
it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So those are all great tips, and I think you nailed it with implementing and diving in headfirst into KV Core. For those of you that aren't familiar, I like to break things. I'm really good at it. I was follow-up boss user number 1, so I've been using CRMs forever. Never dove into Booge. I did the alpha testing for it, and I was not a believer in it. I knew they had some hiccups and some hurdles, so I continued with follow-up boss, and then eventually went to Chime, and now that KV Core's there, there's a learning curve to anything.
Sure.
But it's been a great learning curve, and some of the features and functionality of it, I'm just like, where's this been? So I'm very excited to move forward with it. And I think it does a lot, talking about automation and AI and stuff like that, automating the birthday. And there's CRMs that have been doing this for years, but it's just baby steps, right?
Right.
And so you can do this much, or you can do, baby steps. And there's so many agents that don't even use a CRM. You ask them what CRM they use, and they said, my phone. And it's like, okay, but how often are you staying in contact? And so the accountability portion of it is huge as well. But any last minute thoughts? This was all freaking fantastic, so I appreciate it.
No problem.
But any last minute thoughts for, again, agents that are considering going, haven't gone, or that went, and how to implement stuff?
I think I would personally love to see more agents from our office go. It's a great time.
We had a great group this year.
We had a great group. We had a fantastic time. The dueling pianos were amazing.
Packed it out.
So, I mean, there's entertainment, there is education, there's excitement, there's networking. So, I mean, it's a really good time and worth going.
Networking's huge. I didn't go to it, but I know agents that get 3 to 4 referrals a year just from networking with other agents.
Right.
And it's crazy. So
Big dividends.
it does. Pays off. So if that ticket's too expensive for you, think about how much business you're missing by missing 3 to 4 deals. But awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining.
All right.
We'll
Thank
see you guys
you.
in the next one.